The most important things on the Heap never announced themselves, not the ones that changed everything. The Heap woke up slow on broadcast days. It was the day its residents treated like a holiday. They were the week's single gift, a reason to hope, to wait, to endure. You didn't want to use it up too fast. Archer Jadian was 5 years old, and he had been awake since before the sky changed. On the Heap, that meant since before the gas giant shifted position enough to let the system's star throw gray light across the plain of old metal and broken ground that served as a neighborhood. He stood in the kitchen on a small chair, reaching the counter to prepare his mother's tea. This was a thing he did. She had never asked. At 3 years old, he had discovered that the heat plate contained an uneven coil. If you positioned the pot on the left side rather than the center, the temperature distributed correctly and the tea didn't scorch. He had told his mother this. She had looked at him with an expression he would spend years trying to name. Then she had let him make the tea every morning after that. He set the cup on the plate's left side, waited, listened to the heap coming alive outside the home's walls. A ship passed overhead. He felt it before he heard it, a low vibration that traveled through the floor, up through his feet, and into his chest. Then his ears caught the sound of the engines. Then the exhaust struck. A sweet yet unfamiliar scent, not unpleasant. Burned fuel mingled with something chemical, an odor that bore no resemblance to anything the heap produced. The smell of elsewhere, of distance, of whatever existed up there beyond the transit corridor where ships moved between systems, and the heap remained merely a dot on a registry number that no one important ever examined. Archer moved to the window. He looked up. Just the suggestion of it. A shape against the gas giant's face, gone before he could fix it properly in his vision. He stayed at the window for a moment after it was gone, a smile forming on his face, thinking about the shape, thinking about the distance between here and wherever the shape was going, thinking that someday he was going to find out what was up there. He went back to the tea. Archer Jadian emerged from the back room, her movements deliberate and slow. Her husband Jareth worked as a merchant, departing before dawn broke and returning only after darkness fell. 4 children required her constant attention, along with the household duties she managed alone. She moved through all of it with a smile. She saw Archer at the counter. She approached and placed both hands on his face, as she did each morning, cupping his cheeks, tilting his head up toward hers, studying him with the full attention of someone determined to see exactly who was there.
You're up early, my love.
Archer met her gaze.
Mama, it's broadcast day.
She smiled, the real one, the one she kept for things that were genuinely good.
You didn't have to fuss over me, Archer. I keep telling you I'm perfectly capable.
Archer just smiled as he watched her pour a full cup. She picked up the tea and tasted it.
Perfect.
It was always perfect. By mid-morning, the dwelling erupted with noise. Archer noticed he hadn't heard his 17-year-old sister Wren's voice in a while. She had grabbed breakfast before walking out the door in a blur. Roan was in his corner reaching for things that weren't there yet. 7 months old, Roan represented the newest addition to the Jadian household. Lennox was on the floor beside Archer's cloth. Lennox was 10, already large in a way that foretold the man he would become. Wide shoulders, hands that seemed borrowed from someone older. He was watching Archer work. This was a thing Lennox did that nobody else did. He watched. He asked questions. He even sometimes gave good ideas.
That's the 3rd time you've measured that.
The bend sits in a specific place. If I'm going to build around it, I need to know exactly where.
Lennox studied the servo shaft in Archer's hands.
What are you building anyway?
A motor.
For what?
Don't know yet.
Archer set down the shaft. He picked up the actuator housing and ran his thumb along the stress fracture's crack.
I'll know when it's done.
Lennox considered this.
You've got it backwards.
Most people decide what they want, then hunt for parts. I discover parts and let them tell me what they want to become.
Lennox fell silent for a moment.
This is why Mama says you're strange.
Mama lets me make her tea every morning.
But you're the one making it.
She lets me.
Lennox laughed. He put his hand on top of Archer's head. Heavy. Warm.
Come on. Dara's waiting for us at the corner. Let's go before Sophie decides to tag along.
The dirt bike lived in the third Jadian storage garage. Jareth kept supplies in the first two, but the third belonged to the family, and Archer had claimed it as his makeshift lab. Archer had assembled the bike over 4 months from components gathered across 6 salvage runs. The frame consisted of loader mech struts bent into shape. The wheels were pressure-sealed polymer rings packed with compressed fiber. 3 linked Helion drive motors powered the engine, running off a cell he'd salvaged from a dead atmospheric processor and rebuilt from the ground up. It was not beautiful. The sidecar listed 2 degrees to the left because the weld point had set incorrectly, and he couldn't correct it without disassembling the entire rear axle. But it worked. It worked considerably better than its component parts had suggested it should. That was what Archer loved most about building things. Not the finished object, but the moment before it, when broken pieces aligned into correctness, when the impossible suddenly worked, the moment the world became slightly better than it had been. He climbed into the sidecar without being asked, put his feet on the forward brace.
Don't go fast on the gully stretch.
I always go fast on the gully stretch.
That's why I said, don't.
Lennox kicked the engine on. The engine turned over on the second kick, and the drive motors roared to life with their familiar hiss and pop. He went fast on the gully stretch. Archer held on with both hands and said nothing. The Heap possessed its own peculiar rhythm in the morning hours. Old Marin crouched outside her dwelling at the throat's northern edge, sorting salvage into piles whose logic only she understood. Her hands moved with the efficiency of someone who had performed this task so long that thought no longer entered into it. Archer raised 2 fingers toward old Marin. She raised 2 back. 3 blocks east, at the corner where the main thruway crossed the old pipe trench, a group of men had gathered around something mechanical that had stopped working. They laughed loudly while placing bets on the outcome of today's festivities. Archer glanced at it as he passed, identified the problem in approximately 17 seconds. He'd come back later. The air carried its usual scent: burned oil, worked metal, recycled atmosphere, and underneath all of it, faint, almost gone already, the exhaust from the ship that had passed overhead. He looked up. Nothing there now, just gray sky and the gas giant watching everything from a distance. He looked back down at the street ahead and tried to hold on to the sensation the ship smell had given him. Dara waited at the corner when Archer and Lennox arrived, 8 years old, thin, vast eyes that seemed to absorb everything they landed on. Beside him stood Pell, 7, broad-shouldered, gap-toothed in a way he found far more fascinating than it deserved. He clutched a piece of hull plating he'd scavenged from somewhere, examining it with fierce enthusiasm. Dara spoke before Archer could.
You went fast on the gully stretch.
Dara had clocked Archer's sour expression.
He always goes fast on the gully stretch.
Lennox raised his hands, feigning ignorance. Without looking up from the hull plating, Pell said,
My dad says the hall's going to be full by the first bell. We should go now.
Is that pre-Dominion manufacture?
Pell looked at him, then at the hull plating, then back at Archer.
It is?
The alloy composition reads old. The Dominion switched to a cheaper composite about 60 years ago. That looks like the older stuff.
Pell held it up to the gray light.
Worth something?
Probably.
Pell handed it to him without hesitation.
You figure it out. You always figure it out.
Archer turned it over in his hands, filing the feel and weight in his mind. Handed it back.
I'll tell you after the broadcast.
Deal. Now let's go. I don't want to stand at the back with the adults.
The community hall sat at the center of the throat, a large prefabricated structure that had arrived as a Dominion administrative building decades ago and had been so thoroughly ignored by the Dominion that the community had simply started using it for their own purposes. Nobody had formally objected. The Dominion had more important settlements to ignore things in. A giant screen dominated the space, 20 feet across, mounted above the low stage. It could receive the War God system signal broadcast galaxy-wide to every inhabited settlement in Dominion territory. The hall stood half full when they arrived. By the first bell, it had packed tight. Adults gathered at the back with crossed arms and arguments already forming. Children claimed the front. The arrangement had always been this way, never needing to be spoken aloud. The boys found seats 3 rows from the screen. The scent of fresh sweat and oil hung thick in the air. Near the side wall, Archer spotted Sophie, 11 years old, standing with 2 other girls from the Sink District. Her eyes darted from her group to Archer's. Sophie's posture shifted. Archer caught it. Lennox wrestled with Dara and Pell, nearly locking them both in headlocks, oblivious to Sophie's presence. The screen blazed to life. A galaxy map materialized first, gold and blue. Hundreds of systems revealed the unimaginable galactic scale that silenced thought. Rankings began to scroll. 43, 30, 20. Noise swelled through the hall. 10, 5. The din intensified. Footage flickered into motion. Silence descended. Rank 15 was a Thraxian. His body spasmed between states. One moment a man, the next a mass of living weapons fused into armor that shouldn't exist. The axiom moved through him in deep red waves. His body stretched, cracked, and reformed. A steel dragon emerged from the Thraxian's frame. Red axiom energy gathered deep in his throat. The power built and built and built. The energy could no longer be contained. The Thraxian released a massive breath of pure destruction. The beam struck the fortified position, engulfing it in a massive explosion that shook the surrounding area to its core. Archer leaned forward slightly. He could see the structure moving through the Thraxian's body, the pattern of it, the way it gathered and released. His hands moved without conscious thought, like they were reading something written in the air. The screen abruptly went dark, swallowing the image whole.